Welcome in to Hometown Huddle, episode 31. We are live. Listen, what was the April Fool's stunt that we said we were going to pull last week on the show? Well, I think being live is a little bit of a surprise. I wouldn't know if it holds up to an April Fool's joke in every sense of the term, but maybe the joke is we don't have anything. There's nothing on the paper. We don't have a show written. We figured we would take this opportunity to reflect on a couple of things, also give an update as far as where we sit as the high school baseball season is just underway, and some teams have already been swinging the bat and running the bases a little bit, some around here, some not around here. We'll talk about that in a moment, but we do also want to take the opportunity to say Happy Easter from us at Harco Media Network to all of you watching, and hopefully it'll be a lot as we move along throughout this evening's live episode. Listen, I don't know necessarily what a rabbit has to do with Christ rising from the dead, and I also didn't know that bunnies laid eggs. I don't know what the correlation is between all three of those things, but we're certainly hopeful that you can spend quality time with friends and family this upcoming Sunday. Am I right? Upcoming Sunday is Easter. We're going to test this out a little bit too. I've got an actual producer in the studio, and so he tells me Easter is Sunday. So if we're wrong on that, we're wrong on that. And if we're wrong as far as no correlation between bunnies and Jesus Christ, then we're wrong on that too. But anyway, first thing that we want to talk about, let's just dive right in. Again, let's lay back. I think we wrote down it is a laid back, free-flowing episode of Hometown Huddle this evening. We don't do that very often. We try to give you quality content, which we'll do tonight as well, but we try to have it typically more laid out. But again, as Easter approaches, we figured, and we also need to remind you that we're going back to probably a less frequent schedule as we move throughout the baseball season, and when things really heat up as far as that postseason tournament in the end of May, we will jump back once things get super interesting. We'll jump back to coming at you every week on Hometown Huddle, and we will. I'm gonna pull a Brandon Ludwig, and the boss might not particularly like this, but I'm gonna talk about a couple of the other shows on the network really quick. Listen, if you haven't checked it out, Main Street Message with Brandon Ludwig just dropped for the first time on Monday night. He's got another episode coming out this coming Monday, the day after Easter, and we talked about it on the show. The local people will remember Don Jones, who represented the 95th District of Ohio at the State House level. It's a great conversation, and so I was fortunate enough to sit in with Luddy on his pilot episode as well as his interview with Don, and we talked a lot of times about Dirk Harkins as well, and I Got Your Six and the great things that he does, and he's raising a lot of money to help a lot of people, and that's what he's all about, is people helping people. But again, what does Dirk say? You got to be honest, open, and transparent. So as we are probably 3 minutes into this show, again, we'll tell you that there's not much there's not much of a structure tonight, and there's nothing written down in particular. But how about baseball? So one of the things that I think about is in the East District, in the Ohio Valley, will we see a similar baseball season, particularly a similar baseball tournament at the end of the year as it relates to the OHSAA, as we did a basketball season, right? We remember that history was made when 5 basketball teams made the state tournament at the end of the year, and 5 East District teams. So are we going to see that in baseball as well? I remember one of the things that we can look at to kind of forecast this. You can't forecast anything. You can't necessarily predict anything either, but I look for a team, certainly like Highland. Highland won a basketball state championship, and if anybody out of the East District is going to go as far as possible in the baseball tournament at the end of the season, I believe it's going to be Highland. I also have to think that a team like Toronto, also in that Division VI East District, Toronto's probably set up in a good position to make a run at that thing as well. But you've got a number of teams that are also ranked at that juncture as well. So you've got a team like New Philly, Indian Creek, Dover. So all of those teams, I think, are maybe the ones to look out for. What are the odds that you can get 5 of them all the way to the Final Four up in Akron? You also have to talk about and be mindful of a team like Harrison Central. I believe Harrison is young this season. They're actually away as we speak right now live. They are down in Pensacola. They won their first 2 games. I can't tell you what the combined score was, but it was a lot to a little. And I think they shut out their second opponent this season down in Alabama along the Gulf Coast. And they've got a game tomorrow night as well. And again, a young team. I was talking to a guy. Listen, it's not only baseball season; it's primary season in certain races. And if you've got an eye on that kind of thing, then you'll probably understand that what we're talking about here is the debate that we had last night between a couple of candidates in certain races. And I ran into a guy at that event up in Steubenville at the Youngstown State Branch, and he was asking me about the Harrison team. And he's like, "Listen, man, I hear that they have a good class coming up." But I'm not sure what to expect from them necessarily. And I told him, yes, they're a little bit young, and I don't know that they have very many seniors, maybe just 2 or 3 on that Harrison baseball team. And so now those guys are going to provide a ton of experience, but you want to look at some of the underclassmen and some of the freshmen through juniors who are really going to make an impact for Harrison Central. A guy like Colton Miser is going to be huge behind the plate. What can Colton Rudder do on the mound as far as throwing the ball? That's one of throwing the baseball, pitching. That's one of the he's one of the seniors that Harrison has, but they've got a lot of talent in that sophomore class, and from what I hear, they've got a lot of talent coming up through the ranks as well. And so I told the guy, if I had to take a stab at it, which baseball, again, is not my first language, as we've documented on this show. The pigskin is the first language for myself. But if I had to guess, I would say, in what season does Harrison have the best chance to get back to Akron? Probably that 27 or that 28 season would be my guess. I don't mean to be one to put a ton of pressure on those guys, and certainly not that coaching staff, but they understand what it's like. Valesco and those guys understand. They've got it painted in their dugout. The road to Akron starts here, and so they're no stranger to high expectations on the other side of town at the Harrison Central baseball program. And, I was talking with their head coach not long ago as we kind of transition throughout this evening's show. And he brought up something that was really important, I thought, and something that was very interesting to think about. We were standing right outside of the studio, and as he's saying these things, I'm thinking to myself, you're writing the show. You're writing the next show. Before we get to what he said, I'm going to take a sip of the soda on the desk. Listen, this is the best you can get. Probably the best thing that the Lord ever created. Don't hold me to that. And we've got an update, and I think I spilled that too. This is what you get when you go live. You spill a little bit of the Diet Coke, but we've got an update from the other room. Harrison has beaten their first 2 opponents in Pensacola, Florida, and in someplace in southern Alabama, Atmore, Alabama. They've beaten those 2 opponents by a combined score of 24-1. I remember it was 12-1 the one night, and I think it was 12-0 just last night for the Huskies. But as we transition, their head coach was talking to us at the studio about certain things that relate to high school sports at large, which is really what we want to have a discussion about this evening. And we also want to, before the end of the show, not necessarily recap some things, but I guess you could say recap some things. We'll talk about what has transpired in the world of high school athletics since we started Hometown Huddle all the way back in July. I say all the way because it feels like forever ago. And in other regards, it feels like yesterday. But again, we will get there. So what was the Huskies coach saying? He was talking about, he brought up this conversation of community leaders and district leaders and their involvement in youth sports. Again, this is a high school sports show. I couldn't tell you the first thing about 6th grade baseball or 4th grade basketball. I think we might have another guy in the building that might be able to say some things about 4th grade basketball. But again, I don't necessarily have an eye on these guys or girls until they're in 9th grade. And what that does not mean, though, is that everything below the high school level is not important, because it's probably the most important thing when you want to project. We talked with Coach Laney of Ridgewood not long ago on last week's show, and he was saying, listen, I'm not very good at projecting, what a guy is going to look like by the time he hits 9th grade, because he's only in 3rd grade right now. And that is extremely difficult to do. But what's not so difficult to do is to look at numbers and understand that if you have a certain amount of participation in your youth sports in the area of your school, if you have a large number, okay, you're gonna lose a few on the way as 5th grade rolls around. Billy and Bob, they don't want to play anymore. And then sixth grade rolls around. Jimmy and John, they make great sandwiches, but they don't want to play ball anymore. And so you're going to have that. But you can project from a perspective of numbers, and you can see what your high school team might look like in the future. You can get a pretty decent idea of that. And I don't believe that's necessarily a hot take. We don't really traffic in hot takes around here either. But so you can look at numbers, but what leads to good numbers, and especially what leads to good numbers at the, once those guys get to the high school level, is coaching. And how well are those guys being developed? Because especially in a sport like baseball, it's such a developmental sport at a young age, at the age of 8 years old. Same thing I'd like to think with football, and same thing with basketball. It's really the same thing across the board when you want to look at high school athletics in general. Not only do you want incredible participation from your youth sports at the time that they are 7 years old, all the way up until 13 years old, but you also need great coaching, because then they will have the ability, once they get to the high school level, to be coachable, which is important. You've got to have a sense of humility about your, to be able to listen to the kinds of things that a coach might say to you sometimes. And coaches are notorious for getting fired up and yelling, it's not good enough. We got to do better. We got to play harder. And if you are somebody that is coachable and you're able to take that and use that to improve on your game, then that's a great thing. Where does that mindset start? That mindset starts with youth sports. I'll get a nod in the other room if I'm correct on all this. Okay, shook his head. That's terrible. So I'm messing with him because this is so fun having a real life producer. I'm typically alone in here. The more alone you are, the less alone you are, if you know what I mean. But again, thought it was a very interesting conversation that we had about community involvement. Right? Let's say your principal has kids that are in the district of your favorite team, your favorite school, and what that means is they are now involved in the youth sports. And maybe they have the opportunity to see something that's probably not going so well. Why are we coaching with volume but no substance? You can't have those kinds of things. We talked with Ryan Clifford about this. You can have volume, that's fine, but you need substance. Substance is a prerequisite for having volume as a coach. And let's say, and this is all hypothetical, let's say a principal or a superintendent or a fellow high school coach sees something like that at a youth game because their kids are playing youth sports. What they have the opportunity to do is go to the high school coach and say, hey, like you might want to nudge those guys in the right direction a little bit. And you continue to create this positive cycle of youth sports in your district and in your area and things like that. So I thought that was incredibly interesting. I thought that was a great segment that we could have worked into the show. And now, 12 minutes in, we have done so. And once again, thought that was great. And that's all we've got to say about that. But we are certainly looking forward to this upcoming baseball season. We talked with Luddy. I appeared on his first episode, and you talk about community engagement in high school sports as we transition now to a conversation of why these things are important and why these things are important to us, important to me, because they are so integral for having this community aspect, having the socialization that comes with high school sports in the area. I understand many folks say there's nothing to do, particularly here in the Ohio Valley. You don't even have to be a sports fan, and folks say that. But I'll tell you, there's a baseball game almost every night. There's a softball game on nights that there aren't baseball. You can find the same thing in girls basketball and boys basketball in the fall. You've got football on Fridays, and I know most folks around here, including myself, love nothing more than that. And so you can kind of hold yourself off, from Monday, well, really from Saturday morning to Friday afternoon. You're waiting. But the spectacle that is high school football in this area makes it worth the wait. But again, people say there's nothing to do. For folks like you and me, for folks that really get involved and dive deep into these things, there's always something to do. If I ever find myself saying there's nothing to do, I, need to do something productive, get the car washed. There's always something to do. Maybe come up with the next report for the numbers of the network. There's always something to do. And for folks like me, there's a baseball game. There's a softball game. Maybe not on a night like tonight. We had a couple of cancelizations because of weather, impending weather in the area. I always love that they say impending weather because all I can think of is impending doom, right? And so oftentimes they say that, and it's just a little bit of showers. But I'll tell you what, one thing about meteorology, they always want to make it seem worse before it happens than it actually is going to be. Not for any malicious reason, but because they would rather you, let's say for an instance, a tornado. They would rather you take shelter and there be no tornado as opposed to you not take shelter and then there be a tornado. Same thing with snowstorms, same thing with ice. And so we got to cut the meteorologists a break. Many folks say they're wrong all the time. They've got a tough job. I can't pronounce half of the things that they're studying throughout the day and throughout the week to try to get a feel for what's going to happen outside. What do I know? Nothing. I go outside, you feel it, and folks that are fans of Mike Leach understand exactly what I'm talking about. But again, baseball season, with all of that being said, baseball season, this is dangerous going live. We get distracted. We get a lot of things coming out. But I told you it would be pretty laid back. And because of that, we're going to take another sip of the soda on the desk this evening. Which camera? I'm on this camera right now, right? I have no control over it. I typically have a lot of control over a lot of things, but a lot of things are out of my control for good reason this evening. So, again, couldn't be more appreciative of the guy across the room taking care of the production side of things. I've got to tell you, Hometown Huddle goes on the road. We go on the road a good bit, and even if it doesn't relate to the network or this show in particular, we're on the road a lot because I can't think of anything better to clear your mind and to ease your mind. It's truly a hobby. And I actually get bothered when I can't drive, right? One of the greatest freedoms that we have here in the United States is we've got large open land and roads that you can drive 80 miles an hour on. It's a beautiful thing. But how do you do it? Where do you start? When your mind's going 1,000 miles an hour, you say things twice, and when you say things twice, you typically have a little more effect when you say them. And we have to have effect when we say you have to start at Thomas Auto Centers. You have to go there for your automobile needs. We are a nation, as I said to Luddy, we are a nation tailored to the automobile. At times, it's seemingly inconvenient. At other times, it's a beautiful thing. And it's really beautiful when you walk into Thomas Auto, and they've got everything you need. What did I say the one day? It was completely off the cuff. Anything you want, everything you need. Buy, trade, sell, you name it, and you can do it at Thomas Auto. They help us out a lot, and we would appreciate it if you go there as well. With that being said, what are some things that we think about when it comes to high school football? Listen, I can't tell you, or high school sports, I should say. I can't tell you how appreciative I've been to be able to peruse at different football games, basketball games. Basketball games are more of a challenge because I don't know what it is about being indoors and being more condensed and a lot of people, but something about your boy gets a little nervous, right? I don't know why I have an obsession with caffeine because the heart is 1,000 beats per minute as it is already. We really got to cut that out. But again, being able to walk around at these things, I talked with Luddy, and Luddy talked to me about the kind of community feeling that you get with these things. That's what it's all about. That's what we love about it. And if you have the courage to talk to strangers, one of the great things about doing this show and going to games just to go to games is I'm not particularly rooting for anybody, and so I have the ability to talk to fans of both sides. I remember one time I was at Wheeling Central, maybe not the best place to watch a football game at Wheeling U. Maybe we can talk about that in a moment because we can talk about anything except maybe, war? We can't talk about that tonight. But we could talk about anything. So we'll talk about the stadium situation at Wheeling U. But the point here is I overheard some Barnesville folks when Barnesville went down there, and I forget what the situation was. But Wheeling Central, it seemed, maybe they took a penalty or they took the down, whatever it was, and these guys were confused. These Barnesville folks had come all the way from Belmont County, and they were wondering, why would Wheeling Central do that? Coach Young, what is he doing? And I looked over and told those guys, because I had done a Wheeling Central game on the radio. This is football we're talking about. And I told them, guys, you should see their kicker. You should see Clay Petrie. You should see the capability that he has when he lines up for a field goal. And I think he subsequently did. I can't remember. I don't think he ended up making it, or maybe there was another penalty or whatever. But now those folks know about the kind of kicking power that Wheeling Central has. And maybe in their minds, they go home and they're curious as far as maybe where he wants to go to school. And maybe, I don't think at the moment that I told him about Hometown Huddle, but maybe, we recruit folks into our huddle, if you will, through conversations like that. I'll tell you, while we're a fan of all the atmospheres here, I think it's a good. Is this a good segment? I just came up with this. Best atmospheres, worst atmospheres. Let's talk about Wheeling Central football and their home stadium situation. I love the architecture at Wheeling U, and I love the field that they have there. My only downfall that I have with it is it's one of those things. Again, they've got a track there as well, and a common theme that you'll notice is when you have a track around the football field, makes things a little bit tough on the naked eye because everything is so flat. You can understand the geometry on this. So if you are far away from the field, you need to be up higher. The stands have to be at more of an angle. I think we talked about this way back in like September. We were talking about Creek or somewhere like that. I like steep stands so that you can actually see over things and you get a bird's eye view of how things are happening. That's the way you watch film. That's the way a lot of games are if you want to talk college or pro ball on TV. It makes things challenging. I know you don't have, I'm not talking about this as if anybody has any control over it now, but you look at Wheeling Central, it's a little bit tough because your depth perception is off when you go 53 1/3 yards across the field on top of the probably, what would you say, 20 yards where the field ends to now you have the track and then you get in the stands and they are shallow stands. And so you're looking at everything on a flat level. It's not the greatest viewing situation for you. But again, it's a beautiful campus. It's a really nice stadium. I love the fact that you can go inside to find the concession stand and restrooms and things like that. They actually have restrooms underneath the stands, which I think are still concrete, which is really nice down at Wheeling. But that's one of the things that makes Wheeling Park one of my favorite places to watch a football game, particularly from the press box. I don't know why when they redid their turf, which we're so glad that they were able to do that, and I think they did that right after a terrible flood. You know, the whole thing at Wheeling Island Stadium was underwater, and then they put the new turf in, and so we're really happy for those folks. But they put it in backwards, right? The WP faces away from the press box. I don't know why we did it that way, but some broadcasting entities actually will refuse to do your games if you do that. So, but they've got the press box there, and you have to walk up. I counted it one day because when we do the OVAC football game, the All-Star game in July for WJMH and WTRF, listen, some folks toss around the word. Some people talk to me and say talent, and I look at them with an odd face because I don't know what they're talking about. But typically, you look at guys like Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler. I guarantee you, they're not carrying the 50, 60-pound suitcases of equipment. They're not carrying that up 80 steps to get to the press box to set up for a game. You know who does? Hometown Huddle does, because we're dedicated and committed to the craft of bringing high school sports to you, the viewer. But anyway, you have to go up 80-some steps to get to the top of Wheeling Island Stadium on that home side, and there is no track, and so you have one of the best viewing environments in all of high school football in the area. Steubenville is similar in that regard. Steubenville probably has on the visiting sideline the width of this desk from the sideline to the beginning of the stands, and it's pretty tight down there. But once again, that's also one of the best environments. I actually must admit that I have never been a spectator at a game at Harding Stadium, just on the sidelines years ago, but also one of the best places. Never been to Barnesville. Got to get to Barnesville for a game. Been to a basketball game there. It's one of my favorite gym atmospheres because of how tight and compact it is and things like that. And again, when we talk high school basketball, that's one of the things that is so important, is having a kind of older, smaller gym so that you can really feel the crowd noise and you can really feel as though everybody's on top of you. And it doesn't take a genius to understand that a bunch of people in a small room are louder than a bunch of people in a big room. And so we like the smaller gyms. St. Clairsville is like that as well. I love the gym at Harrison Central. It's quite big, and I've seen it filled up before. I think they had a game. I think it was I want to say it was a sectional or district game, a tournament game in the spring of 23. I should say winter of 23, right before spring. And they had a whiteout, and it was quite the scene. And some folks that I had graduated with were all there, and it was an incredible scene. So they can pack it when the stakes are high, but we like the small gyms, and we really like the atmosphere that provides for a high school basketball game, whether girls or boys. Same thing with a volleyball game and whatever else you would do in a high school gymnasium. We want to continue to talk about football teams. Oh, tell us your best environments. Would you look at that? That's what we're doing right now. I'll tell you about Edison. I hope that guy's not from Edison, or I hope that lady's not from Edison, because, listen, I'm a fan of everybody in the Valley, but I am not particularly pleased with the way you have to watch a football game at Edison. I think the exterior of like everything outside of the stands and the field itself is all great. I love the concession stand, the way that's set up, the way the restrooms are. You talk about going to a high school football game, you got to have good restrooms. And Edison, obviously, everything is new up there, and so they've got that as well. Their gym is nice as well. But as far as viewing a game from the stands, again, they're one of those places where you've got the track around the field. I don't necessarily even care about the fact that all the stands are on one side. That doesn't bother me. But what bothers me is that the stands are a little bit shallow, and you've got a view over the track. And again, seeing a play on the far side of the field, not the easiest for the eye. But again, we want to avoid just going after people and saying that their places are terrible. We'll never say that. But again, it's not the easiest to view a game at Edison. Best environments, were they talking football or basketball, or do you know? Yeah. If we continue the conversation about best environments, I don't think it gets better than Indian Creek. If we're talking football, if we're talking Redskins football, I've never seen that place not packed. It could be 2010, it could be 2028. It'll be packed. And one of the things that helps Indian Creek a ton is their band. Their marching band always seems to be good. St. Clairsville is the same way. And again, they've got those tall, steep stands that you really like on the home side. They're kind of thin, but again, they pack everybody in that small environment. And it's not just the stands. When you go walk around, you want a hot dog, you want a pepperoni roll, you want a Mountain Dew, whatever you want. You're gonna have to squeeze through some people. The stands are packed. You don't even know. Sometimes it looks like it's standing room only. And you add that to a marching band that is so loud you can hear it from literally the others. You can hear it halfway to Caddis. That maybe that's not a literal statement, but it's a good environment. Same thing with St. Clairsville. I know that we've probably been accused of being a St. Clairsville Indian Creek show. There may or may not be reasons for that, but the reasons that I'll tell you is that those are good football teams. We looked forward to that game all season as we think back to October on Hometown Huddle and the things that we were talking about. Again, Indian Creek, with their band and the way that they pack the stands, one of the best environments. It helps when the team is good as well. It doesn't help when they wear those all-yellow uniforms. We're not a fan of Hometown Huddle. We like the red jerseys, and the Red Devils as well, as we transition to Belmont County and talk about one of the best environments. Again, Red Devil Stadium, they've got one of the best, and maybe the only, like, game day operations crew, I think is what they call them. Like, there's no way they pull off everything that they do that you would expect at a college stadium, literally. There's no way they pull all of that off without having some sort of coordinator saying, okay, not only do you have, I'm kind of familiar with, you've got producers and directors kind of pulling the strings as far as a live broadcast. They have to have, there's no way they don't have the same thing as far as, okay, what are we showing on the screen? What are we doing to get the fans engaged? How is this whole thing operating? When is the band running onto the field? When's the team running onto the field? What's it look like at halftime? Those are the things, and I think, I don't think many people really notice those kinds of things or note them, but I think the couple times that I was just a regular spectator at a St. Clairsville football game at Red Devil Stadium, those are the things that stick out to me. The fact that they are able to pull off the game day environment things that you would see at a college stadium, and so they have to have maybe it's students that handle a lot of that. They've got a lot of students that are involved there as well, students that are involved in literally everything. But you factor that with a decent size stands that are also, they're not steep per se, but they're vertical enough to where you're not looking straight out. The opposite side of the field is not at eye level. That's not what you want. And so St. Clairsville's got a great viewing atmosphere. The couple times that I've been there to do a game, I haven't had an opportunity to walk around in the crowd, but I'll tell you, their fans are passionate. That also helps. I think that helps in the case of Indian Creek as well. I told you I'd never been to a game at Steubenville, but I'd imagine that is the real deal up there at Harding Stadium as well. And again, we had somebody submit something that said, talk about your favorite environments. This is also the kind of show to where you can comment whatever you want us to talk about at Hometown Huddle on this evening's episode as we gear up for Easter. And that I know the bunny doesn't come down the chimney, but there's eggs everywhere, and it's really a good time and a monumental time. Some say the greatest comeback of all time. I would argue that what would rival that is Harrison Central when they were down to Bel Air. What was it, 19-0 in this past football season, and they fight all the way back. They did so by way of their running game, not their passing game. These are the things that you remember and things that stick out to you. I guess we could have kind of labeled this as like what things stuck out to you since we started Hometown Huddle. That was one of those things. Probably the greatest comeback of the year because of, again, the deficit, the 3-score deficit, and the fact that they had become somewhat of a passing offense that season, yet they ran the ball for well over 100 yards, maybe 200 yards as a team to defeat Bel Air and come all the way back and win 26-19. We talked about how that St. Clairsville and Indian Creek game was one of the biggest games that we were looking forward to all season as it relates to football season this past year. And I'll tell you, I was worried. I was nervous because we had kind of played a part in hyping that game up. And then you look down, it's 21-0, I think, St. Clairsville, if not 14-0. And I'm thinking, no way. No way Indian Creek was a team of frauds all year. There's no way that can't be. And then you kind of forget about it for a while. It's kind of in the back of your mind, like, you just got some bad news and you're kind of, I hope it's not that bad. And then you look a little bit later, they're tied up going into overtime, and St. Clairsville is able to come out with a 28-21 win. Again, those are the kinds of things that make, and those talking points make sports in this area such a special thing. You want to look at the basketball season, because I know that's one of the things that has had people really excited as of late. Of course, in the month of March, we are now out of March, but with that OHSAA tournament. Again, I think I was telling Luddy on the first episode of Main Street Message, which if you haven't watched that, you got to go to the network. It's all over the place. You got to find it. And I'll really tell you to tune in this coming Monday because he's got an even better episode coming for you. But one of the things that we had talked about, one of the things that I had pointed out to him, he was really wanting to tie in how community and high school sports relate. And I mean, they're not just related. I mean, they are synonymous with each other because I thought it was one of the coolest things ever when you go down. Myself and a friend of the program went to Athens, Ohio for the game between John Glenn and Maysville. And we had kind of been thinking throughout the entire season, he didn't do it on purpose, but and not the first time that he has said something not on purpose, but when we were talking with Donnie Madzine, he said, once you get to Cambridge, the basketball just keeps getting better. And it was so interesting to hear that, and then literally to a T, you follow that up with, okay, Cambridge, probably the best team in the Buckeye 8. You go a little bit west, and John Glenn is the team that knocks out Cambridge. You go a little further west, Maysville is the team that knocks out John Glenn in dominant fashion. It was, what was the guy's name? Gator Nichols that obliterated John Glenn in that regional semifinal down in Athens. At one point, he alone was outscoring the Muskies as a team, and the rest is history. Maysville, unfortunately, ended up going down after that, but it was a line of succession, basically. Cambridge had a great year. You watched them trounce a team like Beaver Local at Ohio Eastern for a Buckeye 8 championship. Garrett Carpenter had done amazing things for them, and then again, I will reiterate because it's so funny how Donnie had called this to a T. It gets better the more you go west. Then Cambridge goes down by way of John Glenn, and then the Muskies go down by way of Maysville. And so that was something special to watch. How about the upset? It was Bridgeport over Monroe Central in a tournament game early on in the tournament, and that's why we've got, I think it's back behind me. It's over there. We've got the Bulldog on set. And it was something that was incredible to see. And that was one of those things that kind of proves to you, A, the games are not played on paper, whether football, basketball, or baseball. Baseball is probably even harder to predict. But they're not played on paper, and you just have to be better than the other team. I'm not gonna act as though I know enough about either one of those teams to say that Bridgeport had the better athletes, Monroe Central had the better athletes. I don't know who had the better athletes. I don't necessarily care because I know who played better that evening, and it was Bridgeport. And it also debunks this idea of defending a state championship, defending any kind of championship. I think that works when you talk fighting because it's the same guy. You're actually defending, like, what do they have, the big belt? But when it comes to teams and different seasons and whatnot, Monroe Central wasn't, everybody said, can they repeat? They're defending state. They're not defending anything. And so it's great to see a team like Bridgeport, get the best of them, not because it's just good to see Monroe Central go down, but it's a great talking point to understand that we've kind of got to understand, yes, it's a popular talking point. They are defending state champions, but we all understand that the 25-26 team wasn't defending anything because this is the first time that they had played. It's a different group, and maybe you don't have a lot of turnover, and so it feels as like it feels as though it's the same group, but it's a different season. You've got other teams who are different versions of themselves than they were a year ago, and so this language of defending a state championship has never made much sense to me. And that, I think, concludes our probably every show we do. We have at least one segment where we get a little bit fired up, and that must have been that one. You know what gets me fired up though? When the side of the house is a little bit dirty. When let's say you got a concrete driveway, it might be a little bit dirty. Anything is dirty when things don't look good, and it gets you really fired up when you can't get your pressure washer to work, or you're trying, you don't know what you're doing. That's okay. Take a deep breath and just call Elite Mobile Power Washing. That's what you got to do right here in Cadiz, and they will get it taken care of for you. You can find the details of that on our page. Once again, they and Thomas Auto Centers help us out tremendously. And Elite Mobile, they'll help you out by washing off the side of your house, because we were talking a few weeks ago, about how if you live near a road, like right up against a road, city street kind of thing, you've got the salt that kicks up and it makes everything kind of dirty. And so you got to get that stuff pressure washed, and that's what they do, and that's what they do a great job at. Let's take a sip. Do we have any comments that I need to be made aware of? Okay. I think there was some national news going down. I think our boy said he had an announcement coming out at 9. That might be taking some of the audience away. I don't know what he's saying. I can't wait to find out. But, so the president is speaking right now. So the president couldn't oblige and move his press conference or his speech back to tomorrow night. Yeah, no response from those guys. That's how they are. Always, what do they say? The right thing, never do the right thing. Sometimes you don't want to live like that, but it's gotten some people quite far. Well, I'll tell you what, as we move along throughout this episode of Hometown Huddle, again, it is something that we feel honored to be able to do. Ever since July, we have been going to high school games, talking about high school games, providing maybe insight, but more so just conversational pieces. We're never going to be the news. We're never going to be the ones reporting on things. But what we are going to do is talk about these things, because that's what you do. That's what you do when you walk 2 houses up the road and you see your buddy's garage is open and he's working on something, and you stop in, and then 10 minutes later you're talking about the local team and what they did the other night, whether that be football, basketball, whether that be, oh my gosh, did you see the Lady Tigers state champions? First time ever. That's the kind of thing. That's the kind of environment and the kind of wave that we kind of follow at Hometown Huddle, and it's something really special. How about those Strasburg Tigers? Incredible season. Again, history was made for Strasburg, and they continue. They're in the East District, and so you not only had 5, as we talk basketball, you not only had 5 boys teams in the state Final Four, but you had a girls team win the whole thing. They figured, they had that win in the, I want to say it was the regional final, and that was something that made history for that program as well. And we said on the program that they said, why would we stop there? They went ahead and won the whole thing. You want to talk about the success of teams in terms of state championships? Who else do you talk about other than Wheeling Central. Now this could be a hot kind of topic. I said it on the show not long ago, but I don't think many folks outside of Wheeling are big fans of the Wheeling Central Athletic Department, because anytime there is a program in an entire athletic department with a bunch of success, there's always going to be accusations thrown around about different things, whether it be recruiting, which I was told, I don't know how reliable the source was, the lights weren't very bright, if there were any at all. I was told that everybody on the team is from Wheeling, so you can toss those to the side. But should they be in a higher classification? I'm not going to say that wouldn't be entertaining to see them, particularly when you want to look at the basketball team, to see them go up against a George Washington. But I really remember what Coach Cover told us, and I think it was somebody had told us before that interview, hey, ask him why they and Park don't play. Ask him why Wheeling Central and Wheeling Park don't play on the same diamond on the same day. He essentially told us something to the effect of, we'd love to. We'd love to play. They want to play the best. He's a competitive guy. They want their guys to get better. And you don't get better in any way other than going up against the best and challenging yourself, right? It's literally like the way that, if you want to get scientific, it's the way muscles grow. You need to push them beyond what they're capable of, and then they end up growing. So it's the same way with the team. You push them and push them and push them and challenge them, and they end up getting better. Coach Cover understands that. Mike Young understands that. And so I'm not fully convinced that it's Wheeling Central that's opting out of playing these bigger schools. I don't know the answer on that. But if you and I were talking about this and you were to come to me and say, Wheeling Central, they just beat up on the small guy and they don't play the big boys. Like, have we thought about, I'm not going to say anything is official, but have we thought about the other side of that coin, which is maybe they want to, but all these other schools have said, you know what, we see the success that you guys have, and we don't necessarily want any part of it. I don't know. That's what I kind of got from that comment that Coach Cover made for the baseball guys. And I understand, I think they played the minimum, if you look at the football team, they played the minimum amount of games that would qualify them for the state postseason. I think you have to play 6 games against West Virginia schools. They did. They played 2 Ohio schools, and I want to say they lost both of them. There's something like that. So, again, that was the conversation that I thought of as far as Wheeling Central. You could look at it in terms of they are taking the path of least resistance to arrive at all of these championships, or you could look at the other side of the coin and say, maybe they aren't the ones that are paving the path. Maybe it's when you see birds, deer don't do this, but when birds are on the road and you're driving 55 down Route 9, they scatter, they get away. Deer don't do that, but maybe Wheeling Central, it was a situation like that where the other team said, we don't necessarily want to play you guys. I don't know, and I don't say any of this as if I have any kind of insider knowledge. We're not quite there yet. Wait until 2028. Hometown Huddle will be the most well-connected source in the land. Probably not true, but I think that's one of the interesting talking points is it a matter of nobody wanting to play them or them not wanting to play anybody? I don't know, but if you tell me one thing, I'm at least going to raise the other side of that argument just so that we can have, positive discourse about the entire subject. But I know one thing is for certain, you can't deny the kind of success that they've had over the course of a long time. You look at just the football program, so many state championships. I think they're up to 13 now, several under Coach Mike Young, dating back. I mean, it rivals that run that Saban had at Alabama. Incredible stuff. Makes me wish, especially because they played an OVAC school in the football championship, makes me really wish that they would have still played that thing in Wheeling at the island. But it was an incredible drive to Charleston. Didn't get an opportunity to get up to Canton. Really wish Steubenville would have came through for us, but we know how that ended against Watterson. We know that they got their revenge in terms of their basketball team was able to defeat Watterson in a big way just not long ago. Indian Valley, we've gotten to know some Indian Valley folks quite well, and who better to talk to and have on Hometown Huddle than Grady Kinsey, Mr. Football. The Glenville game was something that, again, if you're just a football fan, if you're just a sicko, like me, you can appreciate a quality game like that. And your heart breaks for a guy like Kinsey and a guy like Coach Lancaster and all those folks. But an incredible run for Indian Valley again. We talked about how the story's been told many times how we didn't make it up to Canton for the state championship that they won in 24. But where we did go is Janaden Hutton for the parade afterwards. And so, again, it's that kind of community support. And what's also special is that you don't need to win a championship necessarily for you to see that kind of community support. If you look at the stands, you look at everybody, all the diehard supporters who are going there, and I think you really get that in a sport like football because you've got folks that might not have any relation to the team. We talked about this. I don't know if we ended up doing a Bellsville segment or not, but we talked about the fact that that community aspect is probably gone in that town. That town's got a really good restaurant. I don't know what else it has, but I know it doesn't have football games anymore. It doesn't have basketball games anymore. You look at some of the other small towns in the area, a lot of the area is comprised of really small towns, towns of 5,000 or less, and I think they have to be less than 5,000 to be considered a village in the state of Ohio, if you want to look at the municipalities and the way the laws are written and all that. But what really makes small towns go is high school athletics. It's one of the things that makes them go. Not only that, but when you have the community engagement, I was telling Luddy again about look at all the signs. Look at all the sponsors that you see at all the stadiums, at all the gymnasiums, at all the baseball parks. I think it's also incredible how you want to say, for example, a place like here in St. Clairsville, or here, yeah, right. We're not home right now. A place right here in Cadiz. You can know that the first pitch of the Huskies game is 6 o'clock. And what you can do, you get off work 4:30. You can head to Sally Buffalo, go home, change, head to Sally Buffalo, and you can walk a lap or two around the beautiful lake. You can, again, participate in the community, going out and socializing with people and being, I'm not the most social person, but I think it's very important for our society. You could do that. And then guess what? You can go to, I think they sell ice cream across the ballpark, and you can go into Maz Field and watch some good baseball. Same thing at St. Clairsville at Memorial Park. I may or may not be able to throw a baseball to Memorial Park from my window. I don't know, but same thing there. They've got a nice park. Heck, what you could do there is with your buddies, you can grab some tennis rackets. You can get a round of tennis in. You can grab a basketball and hit the basketball courts that they have there. And then after that, down over the hill, St. Clairsville is playing. And I think they just turfed the infield there as well. And so that's the kind of community engagement that you like to see, and one of the things that makes high school sports in this area so important and something that is so special to not only myself but all the folks here at Harco Media Network. You want to talk about a guy who probably has done more good things than I'll ever do, but Dirk Harkins of I Got Your Six, also on the Harco Media Network, tomorrow night on Thursday. That'll come out. He's got another great conversation, but he would have loved nothing more than to be able. I don't think he can make it for the Indian Valley interview with Grady Kinsey, but the kind of bond that those two would have as far as their service for this country, and that's something that's really special. You also talk about Dirk being instrumental in a game like the Vales game between Harrison Central and Buckeye Local, and providing that patriotism to the gridiron. Those two are also kind of inseparable in my mind, but again, it's a lot to be proud of and a lot to be excited for when you talk high school sports in the area. The way those words kind of came out of the mouth, they did so with the tone that this was the end. This is the end of Hometown Huddle. We're never doing it again, April Fools. But what we will say is we will be back. What is today? Today is the 1st. We will be back the 15th of April, barring any kind of phone call that we might get of somebody that wants to come on and promote their program. But with that said, we are back April 15th right here on the Harco Media Network, and we will have many more baseball games under our belt to talk about, and softball games as well. And we will continue to bring you excellent conversations with local baseball and softball coaches as we move throughout that season. And again, we will be bi-weekly up until probably early May, when we've kind of identified which teams are the ones that have the potential to go far in the state tournament on both sides of the river, Ohio and West Virginia. But with that, I thank you so much for watching this impromptu live episode of Hometown Huddle. Once again, Thomas Auto Centers, Elite Mobile Power Washing. those are your guys. Those are the people that you can trust and that you need to go with for your cleaning needs and for your automobile needs. And so we thank them a lot. We thank you for watching. We wish you a happy Easter and a great night.